Hi guys, and welcome to another Elementor video. This is Jamie from System22 and webdesignandtechtips.com. In this video today we're going to show you three great Elementor hover effects that are really useful to know. Our first one here is a text to image or image to text, depending on which way round you want to do it. Really easy to do. Our second one here is an image to a pop-up button. And again, that's pretty easy to do. Nice little feature to have on your site. And the third one we're going to do is a little tab there that's going to pop up and reveal some text over your image. Again, these are great effects to have on your site. We do have to do a tiny bit of coding to do this today, but don't let that put you off. Any code that I write today we'll put down below the video, and you're welcome to copy it and use it as you need. So let's get started. Let's go into my page here and we'll start down here. So I'm going to go to my grid and just get a little text editor module, drag it in there, and there it is. Now I'm going to make this into two rows. I've actually got three rows here with one real small one in the middle, so I've got a separator between my two there if you want to make multiples. Okay, so let's add a new column. There's two, and if you want to do what I did above, we'll add another one. And this middle one, you can simply drag these in until it's where you want it. 48.8. Let's see if we can't make this one the same. 48.5. There we go. Okay. Now the reason we're actually doing this and not depending on the spacing in the modules is because the image that we're looking at here is actually going to reside in the column, not the actual module itself. Okay, so let's style our little module here a little bit. First thing, let's put a little title in, kind of what I did up the top here, just a heading 2. And like any text module, you can link these and do what you can, what you want, just like any other WordPress module there. Okay, let's pop over to style there. I'm going to align it in the center. And I want to make it sort of square-ish, doesn't have to be perfectly square. So let's add a little bit of padding. We'll go over to advanced. I'm going to uncheck the chain, because if you leave that checked, it'll do all four at once for you. I want to do top and bottom, left and right kind of separately, so I'm going to put 100 top and bottom, left and right I'll put 30, obviously you do exactly what you want to do. Okay, now when I hover over, you can see this little blue line here, and it's slightly in from our column. The column's a dotted one on the left there, which means there's a little bit of padding there, and that's in the column itself. So we're going to go to the column now, and this little dark box is for the column. The little blue one with the pencil is for the module within the column. So let's go to the column. First thing I'm going to do is get rid of that padding right there, and that's in advanced. And let's try padding. I'm pretty sure it's padding and not margin. Let's go there. Yep, that did it. Now they're on top of each other there. Fantastic. Let's go over to the style. We're still in the column tab here. Background type. Well, I'm going to go for an image. It says slideshow, but if you just put one image in, it can't slide, so it'll just be an image background. And I guess I'll use that similar picture. Insert it in there. As you can see, it's already behind. I can't read this text very well. So we've got our image in there. I'm quite happy with the way that's lying back there. If you want to see more of the image, just add a bit more padding and it'll sort of grow. But let's go into our little module here to the style. I'm going to make my text color white, purely so it stands out. And there it is right there. Okay, what do we want to happen? Well, when they haven't got their mouse over there, when there's no mouse on this, I don't want to see the text. And then when the mouse goes over it, I want the text to fade in. So we're going to need to write a little bit of CSS for that. And like I say, I'll put this down below. Don't bother copying it while I'm doing it, and you're welcome to use it. Now, I've actually got the Pro version here, so I'm going to go to the Advanced tab and down to Custom CSS. And you can do it exactly the same way with the free version, except you'll have to do it in your theme customizer. If I go back to there, most themes have additional CSS box down here, and you can do it just as well in there. So what do I want to happen? Let's write this. First thing I need to do is give this module what they call a CSS class. So that's in the Advanced. We're still on the Advanced tab and under Advanced here. Let's give it a class so we can target it. This is image to text, so I'm going to say IMT, image to text. Call yours what you want. It wants to be unique and it wants to be something you can remember as well. So we've given it the class of IMT. Now in the custom CSS, it's a class. We always have to write a dot, IMT, image to text. I called mine. Open and close some curly brackets. And in between, we'll put our CSS. Right, the first thing we want to do is make this disappear. So we'll use opacity for that, or see-throughness. So I'll say opacity, colon, 0. That should make it disappear. Yep, there it goes. Now just under here, the time that it takes when we hover over it to bring that back, like I did with this one, I've used quite a long one. I've used 1.5 seconds. You put in whatever you want. But for these hover effects, I think a fairly long one's quite good. But that's entirely up to you. So we're going to say transition dash duration colon and the time you want. I'm going to put 1.5 seconds. Great. Now to make it come back in, we've got to create a hover state. So let's copy what we've got here. Control C, drop down a couple and I'll paste it in below. Control V. Now just after the T of IMT, no gap, I'm going to put a colon, then no gap again, HOVER, the word hover. Now we can create our hover state. So when we hover, we want it to be fully visible, and that will be opacity 1. You can make your opacity 0.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, various different gradients of visibility. 0 being invisible, 1 being fully visible. Now I don't need the transition duration because nothing's changed there, so we can delete that line and just tidy that up. Let's see if that's going to work. There we go. And as you can see, that's brought that in there. Okay, let's update and preview our changes. There's our image. When we hover over it, it's taking a second and a half to pop in our text. That's a nice little feature right there. People are mousing around your site, that happens. It's going to get their eyeballs on it. Now, to flip it around the other way, couldn't be easier. What I'll do is I'll go back in, I'll duplicate this module, and I'll drag one of them, doesn't matter which, over to this column. Now then, we're going to have to go in. The reason you can't see anything on this side now is because our text is white and our background's white. There it is actually there. But we need to go into our column and perhaps put another image in there. So let's go into our column and over to style. Here's our background again. We'll plump a little image in there. Again, I guess I'll use the same one as I used before. Okay, we've now got an image in there, and of course it's doing exactly the same. Before I go back into my module, I want to get rid of that padding right there. Again, that's advanced. 0. There we go, fantastic. get back in there. Okay, now we're going to give this a background. We're in our advanced tab, we're in the module itself, the text editor. Here's the background. I'm going to give it a simple color. And let's give it a white background. And as you can see, now it's fading in. It's got a white background. We need to make that text dark and flip the effect around the other way. So go to our style, text color. Let's make our text color dark again. There we go. And as you see no image behind there. Alright, so what we need to do is flip it around the other way. And that, for our custom CSS, we'll have to give it a separate ID. We can't use the same ID because it'll affect the other one. I'm going to call this one text to image TTI. So we're giving it a class. We need to go down here to our custom CSS that we wrote before, change our class name, text to image TTI. Do exactly the same for the hover down below. Make sure you don't cut off that colon. And flip it round. We'll say opacity 1, fully visible at first, and it should be immediately visible. There we go. And we'll put this one to 0. And when we hover, there we go. Our little image will pop in. Again, let's update and preview our changes. And there we have it. The only other thing I will mention is this. If you've got an image that doesn't let you see your writing too well, you can put a bit of an overlay in there, a darker background, which I've done with this one above. To do that is very simple. If we just go into the module itself, or the widget as they call it with Elementor, and we'll go to advanced background. I'm going to give it a black background, but I'm going to bring the opacity or see-throughness down. If I do that, you can see it's black when I hover over it. If I take the opacity down to, I don't know, somewhere down quite low, which makes it very see-through, just makes that image a little bit darker, and you can read the text better. This image works quite well without it, but a lot of images you're going to need to do this so you can read the text. So let's leave that in there. There we go. And as I said, let's just update. I'm using the Pro, so I can put my custom CSS in this little box in the module itself, or the widget itself. If you don't have the Pro, you can do it just as easily by putting it in the additional CSS in your theme customizer. You'll find your theme customizer under appearance, and there'll be a customize of some sort there. And as far as I know, all WordPress sites have some form of additional CSS or custom CSS box, and you can write it in there. Just to prove the point, let's preview our changes up here so everything's working. And I'll take this away. This is the IMT, so it's this one. Control X. Now if I update and save that, as you can see, nothing's happening with our first one right here. Now if I go into our theme customizer, it's a good idea to give your things a title in here, so // because if you write a lot of CSS in here, sometimes it's hard to find. If you put a title in, it'll be easier to find. So image hover, or whatever you want to call yours. Simply paste that code in below it here. Let's publish it. Now if we go back to our page and I refresh, that should now disappear again. It should work again. And there we go. There's how to do it on the free version. So there's a couple of image to text hover effects, or text to image hover effects, depending on which one you like. I hope you found that useful and enjoyed it. If you have, please ring the bell, give it a thumbs up, comment, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And the one that we're going to create today is pretty simple, but it's an image to button on hover. So we've got a little image right there. Then when you hover over it, you've got this little button that pops in. And of course you can take your visitors wherever you want to take them. And it's pretty easy to do. So let's get started. I've got the Elementor page builder open here. Let's go to our section. And what we've got here, we've got a section. Inside the section we've got 2 columns. Actually we've got 3 columns. I've got one in the middle that I'm just using for a spacer. And the image actually resides in the column, and the button is just one of the Elementor free widgets right here. Okay, so here we are. I'm going to put this in my 3rd column here. And for those that don't know, to add a new column, by default it puts 1 column in. If you want to add another column, just right click on the dark column one there, add new column. That's how I added that one. Then you click on the next one if you want to add another one, add new column. And I ended up with 3. Then I just grabbed it, left clicked on the border of one of them, and just put it in to where I want it. There we go. Okay. And the reason I'm doing that instead of margins is purely because in some of these effects I've been using margins as part of the effect, so we can't do that. This works just as well. Alright, so we've got our 3 columns there. In this column I'm going to put this free widget, the button. And there it is right there. And we'll have a picture of the car, more information, more info, whatever you want to put on yours that makes sense to you or your clients. That's great. I want my button in the middle. For the link, obviously you want to link it to wherever you want them to go, more information about this, or to your contact page, or however you want it. Just put your URL of where you want to go in there. If it's on the same site, click the little cog here, and if it's on an external site, you can open it in a new window. By default it opens in the same window. That's what you want for your own site. Now let's style up our button a bit. Going to go to the Style tab, and for the background color, I'll leave the text white as it is. I'm just going to choose a sort of purple similar to what we got there. Obviously you choose whatever works for you. And for the hover color, I'm going to make mine blue. Background color. There's perfect. Okay, so when it hovers it's going to be blue, this color, and when they've not got their mouse on it, it's going to be that color right there. Okay, at the moment it's at the top. I need it to fill out all of this space. I could just push it down, but the way I want it to work is if they come inside this circle, or sorry, inside this square anywhere, which is going to be the image, I want this button to pop up. And to make that happen, I've got to give it sort of margin top and bottom, so there's something there for their mouse to hover over, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go to Advanced, I'm going to go to Margin, and I'm going to uncheck that because I only want to do the top and the bottom. I'm not going to do the left and the right. So top, I'm going to give it 200, and the bottom I'm going to give it 200 as well. I think 200, not 2000. There we go. All right. I want to make that button a little bit bigger as well. So if we go back to our style, we've got an option of padding down the bottom of here. Now again, I'm going to uncheck this because I probably only want, say, 20 on the top and 20 on the bottom. But I'll do sort of 50 on the left and 50 on the right. That makes it sort of chunkier button right there. And if you don't want any corners on it, at the moment there's slight corners on there. If you want none, just put 0 in there. It'll be perfectly square. If you want them really rounded, put something like 50 in there, and it'll be pill shaped like that. Just for fun, I'll leave it like that. Okay, so I'm fairly happy with that. Now let's put our image in. Now our image actually wants to go inside the column, which is the dark one here. Let's get my navigator out of the way so you can see. The blue tab for the widget and the dark tab for the column itself. So I want to go into the column. I want to go to the style and background type. Choose a simple image right here. And let's use a different image perhaps this time. Okay, and as you can see, that image must be pretty big because we've only got a tip of it right there. And you can change your image settings here. You can change the position. You can have it center if you want, or wherever you particularly want to watch it, or wherever you particularly want to put it. You can make it fixed, which when they scroll up the page, it gives it that sort of mock parallax effect. I think they call that CSS parallax rather than real parallax. But I'm going to leave mine exactly as it is on the default right there, and also the default here. And size wise, I'm just going to tell it to cover. That way we've got the whole image there, which works for me in this particular case today. Great. So now we're actually going to write a bit of custom CSS. With the Pro version of Elementor, I'm using the free version today, you've got a custom CSS box down here, but you can only use this if you got the Pro version, I believe. But every WordPress theme, as far as I know, has a customizer that looks like this. To get to the customizer, go to your dashboard, down to Appearance, and Customize. And just an FYI, I'm using the free 2020 theme today. And down the bottom, you'll see additional CSS. And this is where we're going to write our code. Now my image is not in there at the moment. So let's update. And we'll refresh, and our image should appear here. Just refresh our customizer. And there we go. And to actually be able to write our CSS today, we need to give it a CSS class, this whole little widget, our button widget right here. So if we go into our button widget, over to the Advanced tab, you'll see CSS ID and CSS class. We're going to use a class today. You could do it with an ID if you wanted to, but I'm going to use a class for this. And I'm going to call it bthv for button hover. Call yours what you will, just make sure it's unique. Need to update that. Now we've got our class, let's just copy it. Control C to copy. Go back to our customizer and we'll put some code in here. Don't worry about copying this code as I'm doing it. I'll put it below the video and you're welcome to use it. Okay, so it's a class. All classes have to have a dot or a period in front of them. But before I put the class in there, let's give it a title, so that if we come back later after we've written a load of CSS, we can find it a lot easier if we just put a title in there, or if somebody else happens to be editing the site, they can find it. Anything that's written in between the two stars there will not be read as code. Okay, now let's put our class in. So it's period or dot, and then the class name itself. Then open and close some curly brackets. Drop down, and let's think about what we want. Well, we don't want to see this button at all at first. So we just want to see the image like this one here. So we need to tell it opacity 0, semicolon. Opacity is transparency or see-throughness, if you will. 0 is completely transparent, and 1 is completely visible. And you can do increments 0.1, 0.2, etc. if you need to put it in halfway or something. Okay, now let's copy this and create the hover state. Because 0 is going to be invisible, and we want to make it totally visible when we hover over it. And to create the hover state, I'm going to change the opacity to 1, fully visible. After the V of HV, let's put a colon in there, no space after the V and no space after the colon, and the word hover, H-O-V-E-R. And how long do we want it to actually take to go from transparent to fully visible? I'll say about 3/4 of a second. You put whatever you want to, and to make that happen, we want to write this in the main, not in the hover state, in the regular state. So we'll say transition duration dash duration colon, and we'll say 0.75 seconds, which will be 3/4 of a second. Obviously you do yours just exactly how you want to, semicolon. Okay, let's publish this, and we should actually be good to go. Let's refresh the page. As you can see, it's disappeared there and it's coming back. So let's go over to our regular page now. We've got everything saved. Let's hit the preview changes and just make sure it's going to work for us. There's our little red car right there. Then when we hover over, there we go, there's our little button, and it changes to blue on hover. And this should work wherever we hover over it. That's why we added that margin in the first place, so it would fill out the thing. So there you go. There is how to add a button on hover. Or I guess you'd call it image to button on hover with the free Elementor theme. So I hope you've enjoyed that and found it useful. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, ring the bell, comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Well, this is another hover video here. We're going to show you how to build a hover effect. In our last one, we built this icon to text pop-up here. Today, we're going to build this little tab to info pop-up there. Really easy to do. We've got to do a bit of coding for this today, but don't let that put you off. Any CSS I'll write, I'll put down below the video, and you're welcome to use it how you wish. Okay, well, I've got this page open in Elementor here, and we're using the free version for this today. Elementor is definitely one of the best free page builders there is out there. Okay, and the way these are working, like a lot of our hover effects, is we've got an image in the background of our column. We've got a column there. I've got a column in the middle as a buffer just for this demo, and another column here. And then the actual pop-up text is just a text module that we're going to manipulate to pop up. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is add an image to our background column here. So I'm going to go into the column, the dark tab there. Let's go into style. Here's the background. Just going to click on the little paintbrush there if it's not already open for you, and it'll give you a little image option here. So let's choose an image. I guess I'll use the same one as I used before. Great. Now if this is your first column over here, you won't even see anything when you put that in there because there'll be no height, but it will be in there, so don't worry if that happens to you. Mine's all the way deep because it's inheriting the height from this one. While we're in here, we're going to give this a CSS class so we can target it with some CSS. So I'm going to go over to advanced. I'm going to go down to CSS classes. I'm going to call it tab P for tab pop-up. So our little column's got this name now, and we can target it with some CSS. Great. Well, let's go to our little matrix and add a text module on top of it. There's the text module. And I'm just going to steal the text that we've got here. Dummy lorem ipsum text there. Going to go back into here. There we go. And I'm going to add more info at the top. Or whatever it is you want to say. And I'm going to separate that. But I want this to be center aligned here, the more info part. So I'm going to select it. It's a little toggle here if your alignment's not already up. And I'm going to align mine to the center there. Great. So we can't see a lot here, so let's give it a background. Go to advanced, and here's our background here. Now normal, I'm just going to make it a simple black color. I'm going to hit the paintbrush there. I'm going to hit the little color, and I'm going to drag it down to black. Great. And let's make our text white so we can see it. So I'm going back to style, text color, and make that white. Great. Okay, a couple of things here. I want to add some padding, just lift that down a little bit from the top. I want to give this a little more space round, and we want to add enough padding at the bottom that it's going to cover the whole image. And I also noticed there we've got a bit of a border on our column there before the actual text part starts. So let's just go into the column, go over to advanced. I'm going to get rid of any padding there, so I can just put a 0 in, and the padding's all gone. And as you can see, with the chain there linked, it'll do all 4 at once. Great. So let's go back in here. Let's go to the advanced tab on here and give it a bit of padding. I just want a little bit at the top, so I'm going to uncheck the chain this time. I'm going to give it, say, 5 pixels on the top. Right and left, let's give it 50 pixels. And I want to give it a little more on the bottom as well. Let's give it 100 on the bottom. Let's push this down a bit and align this text to the center as well. I can't remember, did we have it? Yeah, we had it text center here. Yeah, so I just need a little bit more on the bottom of here. So let's say 200, that may be too much. That's fine, because what we're going to do in a moment is we're going to adjust the height of this column so that anything that comes down below a certain height will not be seen. So that's absolutely fine there. And I'm going to go back to my content here. I'm going to select all, Control A, and I'm going to make sure all of it's centered aligned there. There we go, fantastic. Now if you wanted to, you could add a bit more space, push that down a bit so it's a little more central. That's great. Okay, well let's start writing a bit of CSS here. And to do that, we want to give this a CSS class as well, and we'll use the class of, let's say, tab info, or TB for tab info. So now we can target this with some custom CSS. Now I'm going to update this. Now let's go over to our customizer, and to get to your customizer, if you don't know, let's just get out of here. We're going to go down to dashboard. We're going to go down to appearance and customize, and this is common to most WordPress themes. And down at the bottom here, we're going to see additional CSS. Now, if you're working on a page which is not your home page, you might want to flip it temporarily to being your home page in the home page settings here. Just go to home page settings, static page, and choose the page you want. You can always switch it back when you're done editing the CSS. Mine is the front page, so that's not a problem. So I'm going to go into additional CSS, and this is where we're going to write our code. Okay, the first thing is I want to make our column a fixed height of 400 pixels, which is the same as our one next door. And we gave it the class of tabp, so it's dot for a class, tabp, and don't forget, don't have to follow this in real time or copy it in real time. I'll put all this code below the video. So the first thing I'm going to do is say height 400 pixels. Great. So that's made this tab 400 pixels, although the text that's on top of it is spilling out of it, as we can see here. So to stop that, I'm going to add another line. I'm going to say overflow colon hidden. And as you can see, it's stopped at 400, and anything that was below there is now hidden, which is great. Okay, so that's our column taken care of. Now I want to change our text widget here. I've got to push it down all the way to the bottom, so we just see the little tab there. And I want to squish it into the middle. So let's do that. Now we gave it a class of tab info, or TB info, so we'll say TB info, open and close some curly brackets. Okay, well we know this is 400. I know I've got 5 pixels there, that may be 16 or 20 pixels. So let's try pushing it down by 350 or so and see where that takes it. So I'm going to say margin top say 350. And as you can see, that's pushed that down a bit. It's not quite enough for me. I want to push it down a bit more. Let's try 360. Yeah, that works. Now that's going to be a nice little effect on its own, but I actually want to bring it in so it's more like a tab. And to do that, let's give it some margin left and right. We could give it a width, but I'll give it some margin left and right. So I've got to put a semicolon there. When we write code, it's always a good idea to put a semicolon after each line. If there's only one line in there, you can forget it, but it's a good idea to put one on every one, because if you forget to put one of those on, when you write the next line of code, it won't read it. Okay, so let's start with margin left. And let's give it, say, 30%. That'll be 30% of the width of the element there. So colon 30%. Okay, as you can see, that's pushed it 30% there. Let's do the same on the right and see what we've got. Again, I'm going to put a little semicolon. And for expediency, I'm just going to copy this, drop down one, and change that to right. Yeah, that's okay. Leave it like that if you want. Ours is a little skinnier here. So let's up that to perhaps 35. It's broken our word in half there, so let's try 33. There we go, we can see everything there. The reason it's broken it in half is because we've got that padding either side of our text there. So that'll work for me, that's fine. Now when we hover over it, I want it to be all the way back up here, and I want to see everything. So what I'm going to do is I'll copy this TV info, drop down a couple, and we'll create the hover state. Right after the O of info, no space, colon, and then no space again, hover. And we can create a hover state. Open and close some curly brackets. Now when it's hovering, I don't want any margin on there at all. I want it to be up at normal place. So no margin top, no left, no right. So I'm going to say margin 0. And let's see what happens when we hover over it now. Fantastic. That's popped it up there. And when we hover over the picture, nothing happens, but you've actually got to hover over the element itself, the text module, before it'll pop up. That's great. It's happening a little bit too quickly for me. So let's just slow it down slightly so it's more of a subtle thing like that. To do that in the regular state, not the hover state, I'm going to add a transition duration, which will give it a time. And let's say perhaps 1/3 of a second, 0.3 seconds. So let's try that. Now you may not see this until we get out of the builder. No, that's working. That's fine, great. Well, that's doing what we want it to do, but when it's up on top of the picture, I want to see some of the picture behind it. So we've got all our code nicely written here that's going to make everything work. So let's save this, publish it. Now let's go back to our page with the Elementor open. And we can actually refresh this page now. And now we've refreshed the page. As you can see, we've got everything as it should be. Now just to make that a little bit more transparent so we can see the car behind it just when it's up like that, we'll keep it that way when it's down like that. Let's go into the module itself. And we're going to go to advanced and again down to background. And you'll notice up here we've got a normal and a hover. Normal I'm going to leave just like it is. Hover, I'm going to make the background black again. But I'm going to take the opacity down, this little slider down here, so we can see through it. Probably about 50%. Want to be able to read that text well though. Yeah, that's fine. I think you can read everything perfectly there. So we're good to go. Let's update and preview our changes. And there we go. There's our little tab to info pop-up, or image with tab to text info pop-up. And that's a nice little feature. And of course you can apply those classes to any other tabs that you've got there. So I hope you found that useful today and enjoyed it. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, ring the bell, comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Once again, this has been Jamie from System22 and webdesignandtechtips.com. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.